Okay, so I've done a rough sketch of what I want to use as a tag. So this is going to be a dog tag rather than a bag tag, but I've made a rough sketch and I've scanned it. This is the scanned image, which is basically like a bone shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Illustrator and I'm going to go for a new file. And to make life easier for myself, I'm going to make myself something 90 millimeters by 90 millimeters. So that's a little bit bigger then I want to be able to 3D print it, so a little bit bigger than your design sketch should be. So 90 by 90, it's in millimeters. I'm just going to say create. And that's going to open me up a sheet. Now I've got mine set so that I went into my preferences. So under the general settings, I've clicked on this one, zoom with mouse wheel, which means now I can use my mouse wheel to zoom in and out on what I'm doing, which makes life much easier. The things I've got open, I've got properties, I've got layers. Although libraries is there, I'm not going to use libraries, so I could actually throw that one away. So I'm just working with these two things. And if they're not switched on, you can go into Window, find them and click on them, and then they'll show up in your panel. Okay, so what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to bring in my my image, and I want to use that as a template layer. So I'm going to be on my layers so you can see what goes on. So at the moment, I've only got one layer, which is this one we're looking at. I'm going to go and I'm going to say File and Place. And it's going to ask me what I want to do. So I've got that sketch I just showed you there, which I've called bone design. Now, the most important thing you need to remember is it needs to be put in as a template. So we're placing it, but we're placing it as a template. Okay, let me do that again. File, place, choose it, make sure it's a template file, then click place. So that's gone in. Now you'll notice it's created an extra layer now called the template layer. And that template layer is locked at the moment. If I unlock the layer, I can go into it and I can resize it. I'm going to hold down Shift to keep it in proportion. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm not going to take up the whole of the page, but I'm going to make it a bit bigger so it's a bit easier to work on. And I'm going to lock it again. So now I'm going to be working on this top layer. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to draw this shape. Okay, forget the circle for now, just the bone shape. And I'm going to do that using the pen tool. Pen tools here, go across and click on this end bit here and it'll float your pen tool. Okay, now your pen tool's got two bits. It's got the pen and it's got something which changes the anchor points, which will be more obvious in a moment. So before I do any further with this tool, I'm going to click on this pen tool and I'm going to go into my properties and I'm going to say I don't want it filled. And just for the make life easier, I'm going to go for a stroke which is red. So it's going to show up on the page better. Okay, so I've got to remember wherever I start is where I want to finish. So I'm going to start here. Now, it looks a bit weird what I'm doing. It'll make a bit more sense in a minute when you can see how I use this shape. But I'm basically putting an anchor point everywhere where I want to put either a curve or a straight line. Doesn't look anything like the shape at the moment, does it? It's really weird. Okay, now watch what happens. As I hover over, I'm going to zoom in on there. As I hover over and I put my start point and my end point together, you can see that that little circle appears on the icon. If I click, that now has made one continuous sealed shape for me. Okay, and that's what I need for an SGV file. If I hold down my spacebar, I can move around. So what I've got at the moment is basically a path, which is red, and that path is made up of anchor points, these little blue marks, okay, and it looks really weird. If I now go onto my other pen tool and I use this one here, now this one changes an anchor point from a sharp one into a curved one. Now all I'm doing is I'm holding and pulling out. Okay, and you can see what's happened is that anchor point's gone from a sharp one to a round one and has now got control handles on it. Anywhere where I think there's a curve, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to decide roughly what the curve looks like. Now, if you drag the wrong way, I drag the wrong one on purpose, it actually makes like a knot. So you need to be aware of which way you're dragging the anchor points. And you need to think about which anchor points you want to be curved and which ones you want to be flat. Now I'm doing this fairly quickly and fairly randomly at the moment, just to give you the rough idea. Okay, and I'm going to show you in a moment what I can do that makes that a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, so up here I've got two selection tools. The first one selects everything. The second one, which is called the direct selection tool, basically lets me pick a little anchor point and do something with it. So I can move the anchor point, or when I click on the anchor point, if it's a curved anchor point, it gives me the handles. And I can then, once I've clicked on it, I can select those handles. And the difference is now I can use the handles individually. So if I use one side, it affects one side of the curve, and I select the other one, it affects that side of the curve. So it's a little bit different to how that's first used when you actually make the anchor points. Now I can move the anchor points around to make them sharper, and I can alter all of these positions to make them look as well as on it. That's going to do for now. I'm not going to do too much more with it. The only other thing I wanted to show you is that you can actually add in extra anchor points or take them away. So if I chose to go back on my pen tool and I went onto a pathway here somewhere, I'm going to zoom in again so you can see there's my path. If I click, you'll see there's a plus next to that anchor point now. If I click on that one, it puts an anchor point in. So what, you say? Well, what I can do now is I can grab that anchor point and I can do things with it. I could move that anchor point if I chose to, and I could also, if I wanted to, go in and turn that anchor point into a curved one. So I could make a different shape if I want to. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to do Control Z a few times and get back out. And where that anchor point is now, if I want to get rid of that anchor point, I go back to my pen tool again. And this time, if I click on the anchor point, you can see it's a minus. I can get rid of anchor points as well. So I might decide that there's somewhere where I've got one that I don't want one. If I wanted to get rid of one of these ones, I could literally get rid of that anchor point by clicking on it. Okay, and then I could do what I want to do with it. I can use the curve tool and see if I can do it without using that extra anchor point, just doing it with a curve, which I can. Now, as a general rule, the less anchor points you've got, the better the model will be. I haven't saved this yet, so the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to do File Save As, and I'm going to save it onto my computer. And at the moment, I'm just going to save it. I'm going to call it, I'll call it Mr. M Dog Tag. Yours is going to be a bag tag, or it could be a dog tag if you want it to be. And it's an Illustrator file. Okay, but that's all good if I want to go and work on it again to change something. But what I want to actually do is turn this into an SVG file so I can bring it into my Tinkercad. So I'm going to basically switch off on my layers the background layer. I don't want to see the template layer. I only want to see this layer. I'm now going to go File, and I'm going to choose Export. And I'm going to go Export As, and it's going to give me the option. And there's lots of things to choose from, but I'm going to choose the one that says SVG. And I'll keep it the same, Mr. M Dog Bag. And click on there. Do I want to do that? Yes, I do. Okay. So what that's done now, if I bring my window over, is it's saved me this SVG file. So on the next video, I'm going to show you how to bring that SVG file into Tinkercad and edit it so you can 3D print it.